Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Now listen to me, y'all. I want you to really sit with this thought for a minute. Most of the things you call impossible are not really impossible. They just look impossible because you ain't done them yet. That's it. Impossible is an illusion. It's like a shadow on the wall. It looks bigger, scarier, more powerful than it really is. But the moment you step up, turn on the light, you realize that shadow is just your own hand blocking the way. See, here's the thing. Our minds play tricks on us. We look at a dream, a goal, or a challenge, and because we can't see the how right now, we label it impossible. But truth is, everything that's ever been done in this world once looked impossible to somebody. Flying in the sky? Impossible. Talking to somebody across the ocean through a little piece of glass in your hand? Impossible. Breaking records, building empires, even surviving hardships. All of it was once unthinkable until somebody stood up and said, "Oh, I'm gonna try anyway." Let me put it this way. When I first started out in comedy, man, I was broke. I'm talking broke. Like had $35 in my pocket broke. I was living in my car, trying to figure out where my next meal was coming from. And if you had told me back then, Steve, one day you're going to be on TV every day, hosting shows, writing books, inspiring people all over the world, I probably would have laughed at you. Why? Because it felt impossible. At that time, all I could see was the inside of my car at night, trying to figure out how to stay warm. But here's the lesson, y'all. The impossible wasn't real. What was real was my gift, my grind, my determination. What was real was the fact that God had planted something inside of me that was bigger than my situation. The impossible was just a fog in my head. And once I kept walking through it, the fog cleared. Think about it in your own life. How many times have you looked at something and said, I can't do that. That's too hard. That's not for people like me. And then one day you pushed a little, tried a little, prayed a little, and boom, you did it. See, that's proof right there. The mountain only looked tall because you were standing at the bottom. But once you climb it, you look back and think, oh man, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Now here's the kicker. The world will reinforce that illusion of impossible. People around you will tell you, and now you can't do that. Nobody in your family ever did that. That dream's too big for someone like you. They're not being evil. They're just trapped in their own illusions. But if you let other people's illusions of impossible become your reality, you'll never move. You'll stay stuck watching life happen to other folks while your own potential goes to waste. Let me tell you something. Impossible is usually just untried. Impossible is usually just uncomfortable. Impossible is usually just new. But once you put action behind it, once you trust in God's timing and your own hustle, the word impossible don't stand a chance. And let me be real with you. Fear is the #1 ingredient in the recipe of impossible. Fear says, don't even try. Don't take that step. What if you fail? But here's what I know. Failure ain't the enemy. Failure is just proof you're trying. You know what the real enemy is? Doing nothing, sitting still, watching your dream rot inside you because you let fear dress up as impossible. I remember reading about the Wright brothers, the fellas who built the first airplane. Do you know how crazy people thought they were? Humans can't fly. That's impossible. But they didn't listen. They believed in something bigger than the illusion. And now every day, millions of people get on a plane without even thinking twice about it. You don't hear nobody saying, man, I'm about to do the impossible today. I'm flying to Chicago. No, it's normal now. Why? Because somebody shattered the illusion. So here's my challenge to you. Stop letting that word impossible scare you. Next time your mind tells you something's impossible, I want you to say out loud, it just looks that way right now. And then I want you to move, start, take a step. Don't worry about the whole staircase. Just climb one stair. Because once you do, you'll see it wasn't impossible at all. It was just waiting on you to show up with some faith and some fight. And remember this, every dream you have, every goal you set, every challenge you face, God already knew about it before you did. He wouldn't put it in front of you if you didn't have the ability to handle it. So when it feels impossible, that's not a stop sign. That's just the enemy trying to block your vision. The dream is already done in God's plan. You just got to walk it out. So don't fall for the illusion. Impossible is a lie. The truth is, it always seems impossible until it's done. And once it's done, you'll look back and laugh at yourself forever doubting it. Let me tell you something, y'all. Fear is loud, but faith is powerful. Fear will stand in your face screaming, "You can't do this. You're going to mess up. Everybody's watching you. You ain't good enough." But faith whispers. Faith says to try. Step out, trust me. And if you can learn to choose that whisper over that roar, your whole life will change. See, fear is natural. Don't let nobody lie to you and say, "I don't ever feel fear." Man, please. Every successful person you admire, athletes, business owners, entertainers, preachers, world leaders, every one of them feels fear. The difference is they don't let fear drive. They put fear in the backseat and let faith take the wheel. Now, when I was coming up in comedy, I can't tell you how many times fear showed up. Before a big performance, before stepping on stage, before quitting my job to chase this dream. Fear was right there. "Steve, what if you flop? What if they boo you? What if you fail?" And honestly, sometimes I did fail. I got booed. I got rejected. I lost gigs. But every time I leaned on faith, every time I told myself, God didn't bring me this far to leave me, somehow, somewhere, I got through. Here's what faith does. Faith sees beyond what fear can't see. Fear can only see the problem. Fear looks at the mountain and says it's too high. Faith looks at the same mountain and says, "With God, all things are possible." Fear says, "You don't have enough money, enough talent, enough time. Faith says a God's supply is endless, and he can make a way out of no way. Y'all know one of my favorite scriptures is, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." That's real talk right there. Faith don't need proof. Faith don't need guarantees. Faith is walking on the stage before you know the audience gonna laugh. Faith is applying for that job before you know if you qualify. Faith is starting that business before you know if the money gonna flow. Faith is believing that God's got your back when everything else looks like it's falling apart. Let me tell you a story. One time I was dead broke, sitting in my car, wondering if I made the dumbest mistake of my life chasing this comedy dream. I didn't have money for food, let alone gas. Fear was screaming, "Go back home, quit, you ain't cut out for this." But then faith whispered, "Hold on, something's coming, just trust." Not even a day later, I got a call that I had a chance to perform on the Apollo Theater stage in Harlem. Now let me tell you, I was scared out of my mind. That's one of the toughest crowds in the world. If they don't like you, they'll let you know quick. But I leaned on faith, I walked out there, and I did my thing. And that night changed the entire course of my career. That's the difference, y'all. Fear wanted me to give up. Faith told me to hang on. Fear wanted me to retreat. Faith pushed me forward. If I had listened to fear, you wouldn't even know the name Steve Harvey today. That's how serious this is. And listen, fear disguises itself. Sometimes fear comes dressed up as a logic. You know what I mean? That little voice that says, "Oh, let's be realistic," or "Maybe this isn't the right time," or "Nobody in your family's ever done this before." That ain't logic. That's fear in a nice suit. Faith, on the other hand, don't always sound logical. Faith will ask you to jump when there ain't no net. Faith will ask you to trust when there ain't no evidence. But that's the beauty of it, because once you jump in faith, God builds the net on the way down. I'm telling you right now, the life you want, the dream you're chasing, the breakthrough you need is sitting on the other side of fear. And the only way to cross over is with faith. So here's what I want you to do. When fear comes knocking, don't try to fight it with your own strength. You'll lose every time. Instead, lean on faith. Talk back to that fear. When fear says, "You're going to fail," answer with, "But what if I succeed?" When fear says, "Nobody like you has ever done this," answer with, "Then I'll be the first." When fear says, "You ain't enough," answer with, "Oh, my God is more than enough." I'll tell you this, every big move I ever made in my life came when I chose faith over fear. I was scared every single time, but I did it scared, and that's the key. Faith don't mean you stop feeling fear. Faith just means you move anyway. So the next time fear is yelling in your face, I want you to remember this. Fear is loud, but faith is powerful. And if you let faith lead, you'll look back one day and realize all that fear was nothing but noise. Now listen, y'all, I don't care who you are, where you come from, or what your dream is. If it's big enough, if it's bold enough, if it's life-changing enough, it's going to look crazy to somebody. That's just the rule. Every big dream in history started out looking downright ridiculous. Think about it. When the first person said, "One day, we're going to put a man on the moon," people laughed. They thought, "Oh, what? You can't even fly across the country, right? And now you're talking about going to the moon? That's crazy." But a few years later, folks sat in their living rooms and watched Neil Armstrong take that first step. The same dream that looked crazy became reality, and then became history. See, here's the deal. When you got a dream that God put in your spirit, don't expect everybody else to understand it. Matter of fact, expect them to laugh, doubt, question, criticize. That's part of the process. Why? Because people only know what's been done. They can't see what's about to be done. Your vision came to you, not them. And because it's new, because it's fresh, because it's never been seen before, it's going to look crazy to everybody else. I'll never forget when I told my family and friends I was going to be a comedian. They looked at me like I lost my mind. Steve, you serious? Man, you better go get yourself a steady job. Comedy. Ain't no future in that. You got bills, you got responsibilities. You out here chasing a joke? See, to them it looked like foolishness. They couldn't see it. But I wasn't crazy. I was called. And the difference is when you're called to a dream, what looks crazy to everybody else makes perfect sense in your heart. And you know what I learned? People ain't laughing at you because you're crazy. They're laughing because they don't believe in themselves. They're scared of chasing their own dream, so they try to kill yours before it starts. But don't take it personal. That doubt they throwing on you, that's really just fear they're carrying inside themselves. Let me break it down another way. Remember when folks first started talking about the internet? Man, people thought that was the dumbest thing in the world. You mean to tell me I'm gonna sit at a desk and look at a screen and talk to people I can't see? Order stuff without leaving my house? Man, that's a scam. Fast forward to today, you can't live without it. Whole businesses, relationships, opportunities, all built on the same crazy idea that everybody laughed at. That's why I'm telling you, if your dream don't make at least a few people say, that's crazy, it probably ain't big enough. A small dream fits inside people's logic, but a big dream, a God-sized dream, that's always going to stretch beyond reason. Let me give you some real talk here. When I first auditioned for Showtime at the Apollo, people said, Steve, don't do it. That crowd will eat you alive. You'll embarrass yourself. Ain't no way you're going to make it. And they were right about one thing. It was scary. That audience was tough. But I stepped out there anyway, trusting my gift. And guess what? That one night opened the door to everything I've got today. If I had listened to the voices calling me crazy, you wouldn't be hearing my voice right now. So here's what I need you to understand. Crazy is the price tag of destiny. If you want to build something extraordinary, you gotta be willing to look foolish for a season. You gotta be willing to be misunderstood, doubted, talked about. Because when it finally works, when it finally clicks, those same folks who said you were crazy will be the same ones clapping. I knew you could do it. But you and I both know they didn't. You knew. God knew. That's all that mattered. Now let me give you a word of encouragement. Don't let the fear of looking crazy stop you. Too many dreams die because people are worried about what others might think. You out here trying to get approval for a dream only you were given. Stop asking for permission to be great. Stop shrinking your vision so it fits inside somebody else's small imagination. Your dream ain't supposed to fit them. It's supposed to stretch them. And remember this, every invention, every breakthrough, every revolution in history came from somebody crazy enough to believe it was possible. The airplane, the light bulb, the car, the phone, electricity, all of it. At some point, somebody stood up and said, I don't care if y'all think I'm crazy, I believe this can be done. So don't be afraid of looking crazy. Wear it like a badge of honor. Because crazy today is genius tomorrow. Impossible today is obvious tomorrow. And doubt today turns into applause tomorrow. So the next time someone laughs at your dream, don't get discouraged. Just smile and think to yourself, yeah, it's crazy now, but wait until it's done. Now let me break something down to you real simple. Everybody wants the big dream. Everybody wants the big result, but very few people want to take the small steps it takes to get there. But here's the truth. Greatness don't show up all at once. It comes one little step at a time. Small steps over time create big shifts. See, too many of us get overwhelmed because we're staring at the whole mountain. We're standing at the bottom looking up like, oh Lord, how am I supposed to climb all that? And because it looks so big, so intimidating, we freeze. We don't even take the first step. But what we forget is, you don't climb a mountain in one leap. You climb it step by step. That's exactly how dreams work. You don't go from zero to success overnight. You get there by showing up, by putting in the work every single day, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Those little actions, they compound. They stack up. And before you know it, you look back and realize you've come further than you ever thought possible. Let me tell you from experience, when I first started comedy, I didn't walk into the Apollo or the Tonight Show on day one. No, I was doing little clubs, hole-in-the-wall spots, sometimes 5 people in the audience, sometimes folks drunk and not even paying attention. But every night I got on that stage, I was taking another small step. Every bad show taught me something. Every good laugh built my confidence. I didn't realize it back then, but those little steps were building the man you see today. And you know what I figured out? Small steps test your commitment. Everybody says they want success. But success don't come to folks who just want it. It comes to folks who are willing to grind through the small, the unseen, the unglamorous. People want to skip the process, but the process where your character gets built is where your resilience gets shaped. Without the small steps, you ain't ready for the big blessing. Now here's where a lot of people mess up. They take a small step, then look around like, oh man, nothing happened. So they quit. What they don't realize is the blessing was already in motion, but it needed consistency. You can't go to the gym one time and expect to be fit. You can't plant a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow. But you keep watering it, keep tending to it, keep taking those little steps, and one day that thing breaks through the soil. That's how big shifts happen. Let me hit you with a simple truth. You are never stuck. You are never too far gone. You may not be able to change your whole life in one day, but you can change one decision, one action, one step, and that one step starts a ripple effect. I remember when I was living in my car, no job, no home, no plan, just a dream. Now, I couldn't change my whole situation in one night, but I could take one step. So I told myself, Steve, make one more phone call, do one more audition, write one more joke. Those little moves didn't look like much at the time, but each one was a brick in the foundation. Each one was a step closer to the breakthrough. And eventually, those small steps opened the doors to stages, to television, to books, to the life I live today. If I had waited for the big opportunity to magically appear, I'd still be sitting in that car. But I didn't. I took the little steps that led me here. So let me encourage you right now. Don't despise small beginnings. Don't talk yourself out of a move just because it feels too small. Small is powerful when it's consistent. Small is the seed of something great. If you've been putting off your dream because it feels too far away, too impossible, I want you to stop looking at the whole staircase. Just ask yourself, well, what's one step I can take today? Maybe it's making a phone call. Maybe it's saving $5. Maybe it's writing one page of that book. Maybe it's practicing your gift for 10 minutes. It don't matter how small it looks, just take the step. Because here's the magic. Once you take one step, the next one becomes clearer, and then the next one, and the next. Before you know it, you've built momentum, and momentum is powerful. Momentum can turn a little push into an unstoppable force. So stop waiting for perfect. Stop waiting for all the lights to turn green. Start where you are, with what you have, and take the step in front of you. Trust me, those little steps you take today will one day add up to a life you couldn't even imagine. Remember, small steps create big shifts. Don't underestimate the power of just starting. Now listen here, y'all. If there's one thing I know for certain, it's this. Failure is not the finish line. Failure is not your tombstone. Failure is not proof that you ain't good enough. No, sir. Failure is the classroom. It's where you learn the lesson that sets you up for the win. See, too many people quit at the first sign of failure. They try one time, it doesn't work, and they pack it all up. But let me tell you something. If you let failure stop you, you'll never see success. Because the truth is, failure is part of the package. You can't have success without failure. They go together like peanut butter and jelly. When I was starting out in comedy, man, I failed so many times I lost count. I bombed on stage. I told jokes nobody laughed at. I drove hours to shows and walked away with nothing in my pocket. And I'll be real with you. There were nights I sat in my car, head on the steering wheel, thinking, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I ain't cut out for this. But here's what kept me going. Every time I failed, I walked away with a lesson. I learned what didn't work, what needed improvement, what I had to sharpen. Failure was like sandpaper. It was rough, but it shaped me. Without those failures, I wouldn't have had the wisdom, the skill, or the toughness to make it when the big break came. See, here's what most people don't realize. Failure ain't personal. Failure doesn't mean you're unworthy, untalented, or doomed. It just means you're trying. And if you're trying, that's already a step ahead of most folks. The only way to avoid failure is to do nothing at all. And doing nothing? That's the real failure. Let me give you a truth that might shock you. Every successful person you admire has failed more times than you've even tried. That's right. The difference between them and the people who gave up is they learned to see failure differently. Instead of treating it like a death sentence, they treated it like a teacher. Think about Michael Jordan. Folks call him the greatest basketball player of all time. But did you know he was cut from his high school basketball team? Imagine if he had said, well, I guess I ain't good enough. Good enough. We wouldn't even know his name today. But he used that failure as fuel. He let it teach him to work harder, practice longer, believe deeper. And the rest is history. Now let's make this personal. Maybe you failed at a relationship. Maybe you failed at a business. Maybe you failed at keeping a promise to yourself. That doesn't mean you're finished. That means you just got a lesson delivered to your front door. The question is, are you going to unpack it or are you going to let it sit there and rot? Failure gives you information. It tells you what didn't work. It reveals what you need to change. It humbles you enough to listen, and it strengthens you enough to stand back up. You can't learn resilience from winning all the time. You can't learn patience from everything going smooth. Failure is what teaches you those qualities. I'll be real with you. The reason I appreciate my success so much today is because I know what it feels like to lose. If I had made it big on my first try, I probably would have blown it. I wouldn't have been ready. But because I failed, I had to grow. And because I grew, I was able to handle the blessing when it finally came. Let me tell you this. Sometimes God allows you to fail, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Now to know you got that door that closed, that dream that didn't work out the first time, it wasn't the end. It was the lesson you needed for the next chapter. So here's what I want you to do the next time you fail. Don't sit in shame. Don't drown in guilt. Don't throw your dream away. Sit down, grab a notebook, and ask yourself, what did I learn? Because that lesson is the seed of your next victory. Remember, failure is feedback. It's the universe's way of saying, and I like that, try again. And if you're brave enough to keep trying, one day you're going to look back and realize every failure was just a stepping stone. So don't fear failure. Embrace it. Learn from it. Because failure ain't the end. It's the lesson. And when you learn the lesson, that so-called failure becomes the reason you succeed. Now let me tell you something real plain. Who you got around you matters. Your circle can make you or break you. You can have the biggest dream, the greatest talent, the strongest hustle, but if you're surrounded by people who don't believe, people who doubt, people who drain your energy, man, you're fighting a losing battle. See, doubters are loud. They always got something to say. You can't do that. Nobody from here ever made it. You better be realistic. Doubters specialize in reminding you of your limits. But believers remind you of your possibilities. Believers speak life into you when you forget who you are. When I was chasing comedy in the early days, I had people close to me who flat out said, Steve, this is a waste of time. You'll never make a living telling jokes. Go get you a real job. And for a minute, I almost believed them. But thank God I also had some believers around me. People who said, Steve, you funny man. You got a gift. Don't give up yet. Those voices, they were oxygen to me. They kept me alive when the world tried to suffocate my dream. And let me tell you something. Doubters are contagious. You hang around them long enough, their disbelief will rub off on you. Before you know it, you start repeating their words in your own head. Or maybe I can't do this. Maybe it's too hard. Maybe they're right. That's why you gotta protect your environment. Protect your energy. You can't let just anybody have a seat at your table. But believers, oh man, believers are like fertilizer to your faith. They water your vision. They remind you that what's in front of you is possible, even when it looks impossible. You need people who push you higher, people who clap when you win, people who don't laugh at your dream, but help you build it. Here's what I learned. If you're the smartest, strongest person in your circle, you're in the wrong circle. You need to be around folks who inspire you, challenge you, stretch you. If your friends ain't pushing you, they're pulling you back. And sometimes it's not even hate, it's comfort. They're comfortable where they are, so they don't want you to go further because that exposes their own fears. Let me break it down with an example. You ever seen crabs in a bucket? You put one crab in there, he can climb his way out. But you put 10 crabs together, and every time one tries to climb out, the others pull him back down. That's exactly how doubters work. Not because they don't want to see freedom, but because they're scared to go themselves. So here's what I did, and what you gotta do too. I started curating my circle. I stopped spending time with folks who only spoke doubt, who only saw limits. I didn't cut everybody off completely, but I limited their influence. And then I made room for mentors, encouragers, people who had already walked the path and could show me it was possible. That shift changed everything. So, and let me say this to somebody listening, sometimes the doubters are people you love, family, friends, folks you grew up with. That's tough, I know. But listen, just because you love them, don't mean you gotta take advice from them. You can love them from a distance and still protect your dream. Because if you let their disbelief choke your vision, you'll never forgive yourself later. Let me give you an example from my own life. When I got the opportunity to host a Family Feud, some folks told me, Steve, that's a dying show. Don't tie your name to that. But I had people in my corner who said, Steve, you can bring new life to that thing. You can make it your own. Guess who I listened to? The Believers. And today that show became one of the biggest blessings in my career. See, that's the power of surrounding yourself with the right people. Doubters see problems. Believers see potential. Doubters say it's too hard. Believers say it's hard, but you got this. Doubters drain your faith. Believers fill it back up. So let me challenge you today. Audit your circle. Ask yourself, do the people closest to me fuel me or drain me? Do they believe in me or doubt me? Do they celebrate me or criticize me? And if the answer ain't good, you need to make a change. Because here's the truth. Your dream is too valuable. Your calling is too important to be suffocated by the wrong voices. You need people who can see past your now into your next. People who call out the greatness in you, even when you don't feel it yourself. So surround yourself with believers, not doubters, because the people you walk with determine the places you'll end up. Let me tell y'all something. People got short memories when it comes to doubt. When you're chasing a dream, everybody got an opinion. They'll look at you and say, oh man, you crazy. That'll never work. Who you think you are? But here's the funny part. Once you pull it off, once it's done, all that doubt don't matter no more. See, doubt is loud at the beginning, but silence at the end. And too many of us give too much energy to the doubt. We replay those negative words in our head over and over. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I'm not good enough? But let me tell you, the moment you cross that finish line, nobody remembers how impossible it looked. All they see is the victory. When I first told people I wanted to be a comedian, you know what they said? Steve, ain't no money in that. You gon' starve. Be realistic. And for a while, that stuff messed me up. I kept thinking, what if they right? But then I made a decision. I'm not going to celebrate their doubt. I'm going to celebrate what I know God put in me. Fast forward some years after I made it big, those same folks came back like, oh man, I always knew you had it in you. Ain't that something? They done forgot all the doubt they spoke over me. You see, people switch up quick once the dream is done. That's why I'm telling you, stop carrying the weight of doubt on your back. You don't need to prove the doubters wrong. You just need to prove yourself right. Let your success do the talking. Let your results silence the noise. Because once it's done, the doubt don't get remembered, the done does. Let's make this plain. Imagine you're building a house. While you laying the foundation, folks gonna drive by and say, oh man, that ain't gonna hold up. That don't look right. While you putting up the frame, they gonna say, oh, that's crooked. That's too small. That ain't gonna last. But once the house is finished, once the paint is on the walls and the roof is shining in the sun, ain't nobody talking about how it looked halfway done. They just say, wow, that's a beautiful house. That's how your life works. That's how your dream works. Nobody gonna remember the process. They just gonna see the product. And you gotta learn to celebrate the product, not the chatter. Let me say this real clear. The doubters ain't going away. Every level you go to, there's gonna be somebody saying, you can't do that. But the secret is this. Don't give your applause to their doubt. Don't spend your energy arguing with them, convincing them, or trying to get them on board. No, put your energy into finishing. Finishing. Because when it's finished, the doubters fade into the background. You know who remembers the doubt the most? You. We hold on to those words like anchors. Somebody told you at 12 years old you wasn't good enough. And here you are, 30, 40 years old, still carrying that. Let that go. They don't even remember saying it, but you're still living under it. That's wasted energy. Instead, learn to celebrate small wins on the way to the big done. If you wrote the first page of your book, celebrate that. If you saved your first $100 for your business, celebrate that. If you went a week chasing your dream without quitting, celebrate that. Because every little done builds toward the big done. And the more you celebrate progress, the less power doubt has over you. Let me hit you with something personal. When I finally got my first TV gig, I cried. Not because the world believed in me, but because I finally saw it done in front of me. I saw all those years of sleeping in my car, all those years of being broke, all those years of people saying, you'll never make it. And none of it mattered anymore. Done erases doubt. And here's the beautiful part. Once you do it, you inspire somebody else. Somebody watching you right now is stuck because of doubt. They scared. They hesitate. They're gonna look at you and say, if they did it, I can do it too. And that ripple effect, that's how generations change. That's how communities rise. That's how faith spreads. So don't sit there thinking your story don't matter. Don't believe that lie. Your story is somebody's roadmap. Your survival is somebody's proof. Your victory is somebody's motivation. And you may not even know who you're inspiring. But trust me, they're watching. Listen to me. God didn't bring you through all that just for you to keep it to yourself. Nah. He brought you through so you can shine that light for the next person stuck in the same darkness you once lived in. He brought you through so you can show others it ain't impossible. It's just not done yet. So the next time you feel like quitting, remember, it ain't just about you. Somebody's breakthrough is tied to your persistence. Somebody's courage is tied to your comeback. Somebody's dream is tied to your done. And when you finally cross that finish line, when you finally step into that victory, don't keep it quiet. Share it. Tell it. Live it out loud. Because your story ain't just your glory. It's somebody else's lifeline.